All right, welcome to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
Eric.
and today we are going to be talking about Rosemary's Baby. Eric and I actually both have the same edition of the book, which is kind of neat. Um, so yeah,
Unplanned?
yeah, definitely unplanned because you've had yours for a long time, right?
Yeah, I've had mine, I want to say at least for 5, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just did my, I can't remember if I did. It doesn't have the sticker on it, so it wasn't thrift books. Because thrift books always put stickers on their books. So I must have got it maybe from eBay or something.
I get
Um,
most of my used books from half price books because that's a big staple here in Texas.
yeah, we don't have those. I really want to go to a half price books. We do have used bookstores, um, but they're mostly like Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Laurel K. Hamilton,
Yeah,
um, those types of books.
that was weird.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what's going on there, Eric.
I'm having a stroke, I think, but no, it
Yeah,
was just the light.
we
So,
got some here. Possession, you got a haunted house there?
well, I do have a, let's see if I can figure out which direction to go. There you go. You see him
Oh
skull
yeah.
glowing in the back?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's for my outdoor Halloween stuff. I was digging around because I'm getting ready to start building things.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah, because you go all out. Didn't you have some stuff stolen last year?
yeah, we lost like 5 characters last year, which is weird, but whatever. People are
Yeah,
people. They're gonna
that's a
they're
bummer.
gonna they will disappoint you. But I guess they need a Halloween costume, so they grabbed what they could and ran.
Yeah, I guess
And
so.
yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. I got some plans for that too this year. So
Yeah. Get some of those ink splatter things so when they take them, they get covered in ink.
yeah, I'll have something set up. I definitely am gonna have cameras this year.
Yeah, well, that's good. Um, so thinking about the book, you know, I have to say I really enjoyed it. It was a very quick read. I was super into it. I didn't want to put the book down, and it's not very long. Um,
215 maybe.
yeah, 215 pages. Um, so not a very long book at all. Um, yeah, it was really interesting. My first
Yeah.
time reading it. I have not seen the movie fully, so I really wasn't biased. I know Mia Farrow plays the character, and of course, her picture's on the back of this edition, anyways. Um,
Oh, mine's
s-
different. I guess
yeah.
we are have slightly
Oh,
different. I
oh,
got
is
the
that?
guy, the
Oh, you
writer.
got the author? Huh.
Yeah,
Um, so I kind of pictured the character as I was reading as Mia Farrow, but I have not
yeah.
seen. I think I've seen only maybe like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Um, and
And
I
see,
just
that's the only problem I had too, is I picture her, but I haven't seen the movie, or if I did, it's been so long I don't remember it. I couldn't picture any of the other people
yeah.
from their actors, which was nice. So it'll be interesting when we do talk about the movie, you know, who did they cast in these roles? I'm interested to see who Guy is and her friend, what's his name? Hitch.
Hutch. Hutch.
Hutch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who they cast in Hutch because I know who I would have cast, I think. But we're talking in the book. My book here says 67, with the movie coming out soon to be. So do you think the movie came out in 67 or 68?
I don't know, because mine says mine was 67.
How
Um,
crazy is that? We got the same year,
but
and yet
mine
we
says
have different
now a
math.
major Paramount motion picture.
Okay, so sometime in 67, they
Yeah.
must have released the movie. I got the one
Yeah.
right before, you got the one right after. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see how they do all that stuff. And yeah, I agree with you. It's a quick read. It's well written.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, I guess it might. I don't know if it's my favorite that we've read so far of the classics. If we're talking just Exorcist, um, Amityville, and now Rosemary, right? Those are the three we've done. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. There was something about Amityville that was so just bubblegummy perfect.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It just, I didn't feel like it was a chore. Not that this reads like a chore, but I don't know. I felt like more like I was doing homework this time.
Yeah.
Um,
I when I was reading this, it kind of seemed like a play to
you know
me,
what? Yeah,
you know?
definitely. I could see
I'm
it breaking out on stage,
yeah.
very limited environment.
Hmm.
And I kind of get that. I mean, because you need that feeling of isolation that she goes through throughout the whole arc of the book.
Yeah.
So it's funny. She's isolated and completely separated from everyone, but at the same time, she lives in New York, so she's completely surrounded.
Yeah.
And then there's these, and then she, for lack of a better word, I guess she wakes up and surrounds herself with her friends again, and then it's a positive forward
Yeah.
motion that continues her on this weird journey she has.
Yeah, but she's isolated, but I think it's kind of a key factor of the Castavets
Yeah,
doing that because she was isolated, but she also always had these people around her. The
right.
Castavets, um, Laura Louise, I think was one of the other characters' names.
Yeah,
Um, so, and then in the very beginning, Terry. So I think that was by design as far as
sure.
the what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, I think that was part of what they were trying to do to isolate her so that they could take this nefarious action. And
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I just think it's funny um, that in a city that large and in that kind of environment that they were able to isolate her, and that she didn't even recognize it, which is kind of weird. And I almost feel like if she would have been a native New Yorker, that couldn't have happened to the character. I think it had to be someone from the Midwest who travels to New York to
right.
live out their dream or whatever. Um, and then the marriage with Guy is a little weird, but they're only married what 2 years into this
Yep.
story, so you still can see where they would have that kind of awkward. I mean, I'm not sure. If I'm going to compare with my marriage, I'm much more comfortable now saying something if something's weird to my wife than I would have been in the first year or two as you're figuring out your dynamics.
Exactly. Yep.
So you can kind of understand where she's coming from and why she's so easily manipulated in this whole thing. But I find myself kind of just wishing that she would pull her head out and see what's going on.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about her being from Omaha. She is like, she moves to New York. She's got stars in her eyes. Not that she wants to be an actress, but she's, New York City, and Guy is an actor. So that's like, she thinks that she's hit this jackpot and,
Yeah,
you think about in that time, in that era, women in Omaha, Nebraska were like the Midwest. It was you get married, you raise the kids, and now here she is. She broke away from her family and moved to New
yeah,
York City. And
to the point that she's ostracized from her family.
yeah,
There's only one family member that supported her doing this,
yeah,
and
her
they don't talk.
brother.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
talk to her really, other than big events.
yeah,
Which makes that one scene interesting when her sister calls.
yeah,
The intuition of the family feeling that something might be off,
right.
and her not being far enough along on the journey to recognize that the sister, has picked up on something.
Yeah,
So that it's a missed opportunity for her to get out of it. But of course, we need that. It fills in the blanks and stuff. But it's a good writing device. But you're totally right. This feels like it could have been a play.
yeah.
And
I
and I
was just
and
I was just missing enter stage left,
yeah,
you
there
know.
were there was that was, and I noticed in the back where it talks about the author, he does say something about how he's won some awards, and worked on plays and stuff. And I kind of got the feeling that the writer is Hutch a little bit, a little bit of Hutch and a little bit of um, that guy, the acting coach that's supposed to be helping out Guy.
Oh, right.
That I kind of got that feeling like he was sprinkling in all these personal um, you know, examples of things that he's gone through as
Right.
a New York writer. playwright, whatever it is. Because it does have that tape. It does have enough information in it where you do feel like you're not looking at somebody who's Googled everything, but that has actually been a part of the
Yeah.
process. And
Yeah.
especially at that time, because if we're talking about the 60s, if you're doing television, it's LA, New York, and it's a big deal. But it's all concentrated. And if you watch any of the documentaries or see any of that stuff, there's a lot of talk about how TV in New York was really starting to rise at this period of time. And so it was interesting to see Guy in the background of the story kind of go from struggling actor on Broadway or, not even off Broadway to maybe being on Broadway to then doing the television and then rejecting movie roles. And so it was kind of interesting to see how the author was able to incorporate all that and not bore you and also not take you away from the story.
Yeah.
Just kind of layered everything.
Yeah, and not make it obvious that it was part of the him being in the, I'll just call it a cult.
Yeah.
Um, him being in the cult. Because if you're paying attention to the story, I mean, at least this is what I got from it. This was his rewards
Mm-hmm.
because all this stuff started happening after he started being really good friends with the husband. What was his
Roman.
name? Roman.
Roman.
And Mimi and Roman, Minnie and Roman, and going over there all the time. So all this good fortune started happening to
Right. And
him.
and and so the first time you read it, it's subtle.
Yeah,
The second time you read it, you just want to drag Guy out because immediately I'm like, oh, that's right, I remember now. That's
yeah,
like immediately you can see that the deal's made. When he goes out for ice cream and he runs to the neighbor's house and she can hear him knocking on the door because the walls are so thin,
yeah.
um, which is kind of weird too, the way the whole aesthetic of the building and stuff. Do you watch Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and
Mm-mm.
Martin Shorts? It's on Hulu, but it takes place in a New York building like this. And it's an amazing building. It's the whole thing I pictured the whole time I'm reading it was the way this,
Oh,
the
wow.
huge apartments and the multi floors and some people being friendlier and some people not. And the guy at the door and just everything. It has that same feel, but it's a murder mystery. They have 2 seasons. It's a pretty good show. If you like Steve Martin,
I love
and
Steve Martin. Yeah,
then it's definitely it's classic Steve Martin stuff.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and Martin Short's pretty good in it too, and Selena Gomez is in it, and just a whole bunch of cast of characters.
Nice. I'll have to check that out.
And but anyway, so you have that idea. So having that in my head, these apartments are gigantic. So I did find it was kind of odd that she could hear so clearly what they're doing in the apartment next door. But then later we find out why, since they're attached.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, no. The first time I don't remember thinking immediately that Guy is selling his wife out. But this time, I instantly everything he does seems suspicious.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I like that this book was very subtle. As you get those little subtle hints, like him going to when he's going out for ice cream that one time while she's
right,
pregnant or whatever. um uh
what's
After the whole ritual, there was the subtlety of him not looking at her.
yeah,
um
yeah,
and so it's and I kind of wish they would have gone into more of guy he would have gone into more of Guy's feelings about that, because you could take the fact that he's not looking at her um as either his guilt
or is repulsed.
or he's repulsed.
Yeah,
Exactly. It kind of wasn't explained. It was just you get these little hints of change in his personality towards her.
right.
um
But I'll be honest with you. I'm happy that they didn't go. He keeps it from Rosemary's perspective,
yeah,
just slightly off, like over her shoulder. But
yeah,
basically, everything is Rosemary's thoughts, her, what's happening to her, how she's reacting to it, everything around her. So, and at the same time, so then that way he can use her as an unreliable narrator
yeah,
because you don't know for sure if everything she thinks is going on because she's the one telling us in a way, without going into first person. But I almost think we would have lost um, I think if we would have got a good look in the guy's head, I think we would have lost the suspense of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because at the
Yeah.
same time, he could have at the end of this book just written it off as she's crazy, and none of this happened, and there was nothing else going on, and they could have gone a totally different way. She could have killed, end up killing her husband, or maybe she kills the baby, or what I'm saying. Not that she does
Right.
any of that, but they could have done something if they wanted to go that route. But doesn't this feed into what we talked about in the last two book discussions about how weird the 60s and 70s must have been about people thinking Satanists were just everywhere and stuff?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
every one of these books has been strong on the demons and the devil
Hey,
and the
you're right,
death.
because they talked a lot about Black Mass and Exorcist.
Yeah,
And they talked about Satanists in Amityville. So
yeah.
you're right. Yeah. Yeah,
And
there's
then
a
it's
lot of
just like
Satanists going on.
I know, and I'm like, I have a feeling that the next book we read, of course, will, since we're going to do the Omen, it's going to deal with that, and then Sentinel looks like it kind of deals with that. But I'm just like, well, no wonder everybody thinks that the 60s and 70s was filled with Satanists. All the top books are about Satanists and stuff.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if I think, and again, it's almost as if it was written like a play. We're getting the perspective of the one character, the main character, and nothing else, and then we kind of have to piece everything together. I thought he did a really good job, um, you know, filling out the all shucksness of it from her
Hmm.
character
Yeah.
without boring us to death with the whole
Yeah.
all shucksness. Um, and I also wonder, I guess the weirdest stuff I thought about it was going back and reading how nonchalant Guy was about how he's talking about having sex with his wife while she was unconscious, and that he had such rough sex with her that he physically harmed her,
Right.
and acting like it wasn't a big deal at all. Or, and I guess that plays into that, um, you know, the women's movement and the rise of feminism and all that stuff. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking this is the time period of the rise of feminism, and for him to have the character be so nonchalant in New York, I would have thought that he would have been more, I don't know what the word is, but a little more, I don't want to say liberal, but you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
Guy was acting like a caveman at that point,
Hmm.
but we were led to believe that he's supposed to be this man of, sophistication and of the times, like, she's, and I just thought it was kind of odd,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's, and of course, that wasn't even what happened,
Right, of course. I mean,
you
he
know.
sold her out
So,
to the devil and
yeah.
stood there while the devil had sex with her. I was telling my wife about it. I said, I assume that if you woke up and were covered in scratches and bruises, and I made it sound like I had just decided to get Randy, why didn't the husband just go, you don't remember? All he had to do was say, you don't remember, you were a wildcat. And then
Yeah.
he doesn't have to look like a dirtbag this entire rest of the book or whatever.
Right.
But
And she was drunk.
right. He could have
So,
just simply said, you must have, you pushed it. I went with it, not realizing you were that, there. He could have gone a different way. The fact that he went with, yeah, it was kind of like having sex with a corpse. And I thought it was cool,
yeah.
was like, what are
Because you
you
were just,
doing, man?
yeah, you were just,
It was an odd.
yeah.
It feels like it would have been something that would have caused an issue in my marriage in year two if I
Yeah.
came up with that kind of explanation. The other thing I was kind of thinking about was, wouldn't she realize how different she felt after having sex with the devil compared to having sex with her husband? I would assume, and unless he's really going to say that he was rough or whatever, if she wakes up feeling totally different than she normally does after she has sex, she almost would have to think somebody else had sex with her, not her husband.
Yeah.
I would think. I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah. I think he made a comment something about, oh, I was drunk, because they had both been drinking,
Right. But
whatever.
but the
Yeah.
fact that she was able to play it off makes you think that this isn't the first time this guy's done something kind of like that.
Hmm.
And then it pulls the whole marriage into question. And then you see it later in the book at two different times where she has to talk herself back into the marriage, where she's at the
Yeah.
cabin
Yeah. When she's at
and
the cabin.
takes a couple days for her to decide that, oh, she really does love her husband. She misses him and all that stuff. And then later when right before she starts thinking that he might be part of the problem.
Yeah, because she starts realizing he's never naked around her.
Yeah.
And I think she had mentioned something about seeing like a pimple or something on him or
Yeah,
whatever.
later he's got a healing boil
Yeah,
or pimple that is actually the mark of whatever happened at that Satan thing, which
yeah,
they don't go into, which is another good thing. I really think that he was smart not to do that, because if he switches perspectives and we go to the party and we see how he gets initiated, we see the deal he makes, then there's no chance for suspense through this book because we already know it's coming. So I think he was really smart on that. And it
yep.
does, and it has a good 2 or 3 waves of suspense where you're
Oh
like,
yeah,
and then you crest it, and then she kind of gets her head right with ball, and then immediately something else happens. The only thing I didn't like was how quick she was to embrace the whole witch thing.
oh yeah. At
Uh,
the very end, yeah,
that was the odd part. Took her friend's in a coma for a year, dies. She finally gets the book that he wanted to give her the night. Was it the night before she got pregnant, or was she already pregnant at
she
that
was
point?
already pregnant, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Because Roman showed up, and Guy, yeah, because Guy was already TV makeup. Remember, he
yep,
runs home
yeah.
to
He
get
was
this
in the.
stuff.
Yep,
So, but yeah, it's like, oh, here's a book. Here's a real complicated puzzle about an anagram that they don't explain. Like she isn't told his name is the anagram. It's an anagram, and she
yeah,
is able to figure out of all the different things it could be that one guy's name is actually the name of the witch guy
yeah,
from the building. That's the only part that I was like, okay, we really have to suspend a little belief here. But
yeah,
it had that the movie of the week wrap up, like, hey, we only got 10 minutes left. You need to solve this so that we can get to the big reveal.
yeah,
But it's fine. I mean, everything else is really interesting, I thought, within the whole story. What did
yeah.
you think of the ending?
Um,
Did you like the ending? Would you prefer that she never finds out, or do you like the way that they went with it?
I'm. I like that she found out. Um, I like, I like at the end that you finally get to see the horror. Because the rest of the book is just mystery.
Mhm.
Um, I don't consider like 3/4 of the book as horror. It's this big mystery and there's a lot of subtlety and a lot of weird things going on, but there's nothing super creepy except for that dream that she had during the what's the word? The ceremony, when they took her through to the other room or the other apartment. But I don't
I
know. I think
almost
she kind of just like accepted that her son was this creature, like, and maybe he was trying to convey that her mind she went crazy because of course she's first told her baby's dead, and then she keeps hearing this baby cry, and they keep taking her milk, and they won't let her like put a dirty spoon in the milk. Um,
right. I
she's like,
like how she catches on
mm,
and then tests it. Every time she catches on, she tests it.
yeah,
You know, um, the
yeah, because she
spoon was
said she would
one,
hear the baby cry, and then they would come and get her milk. And then you're right, she tested it by trying to put the dirty spoon in the milk.
but all through the whole book, anytime she got off about something, she would test something. She would change something a little bit, get the reaction she was looking for, and then go forward. She didn't just randomly burst into these weird hysterics.
Yeah,
So, which I thought was an interesting take because he tried to set it up like she was a
yeah,
hysterical, not her specifically, but it was like, here's the blueprint of a hysterical woman. She fits it. And
yeah,
then he played against Cass the entire time, which I thought was very interesting and maybe ahead of its time. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't read a lot of books from the 60s, so I'm not sure. But I thought that was an interesting way because, um, they could have easily played her off as just a dumb Midwesterner
yep,
taken advantage of and dropped off. But yeah, so do you? I think that's why he set us up 3 different times of her talking herself back into things, back into the relationship. She falls out with Minnie and Roman, and then she talks herself back into their friendship.
Yep.
She wants to get rid of the doctor, talks herself back into it. So at the end of the book, it's natural that we can see, we've seen her process before. So it's natural for her to ignore the hooves, the tail, the horns, the devil eyes, and for her to just focus on what is, in her words, half her, you know. Although I thought it was pretty ballsy that she thought half of just a regular human was enough to counterbalance the devil.
Yeah.
But whatever. I thought but I agree with you. I do like the fact that they, because I think it's more horrifying that she knows, not only does she know it, but she's telling him, we're going to move you out of this house. We're going to call you this different name. So she's basically becoming the leader of this coven.
Yeah.
And by the
Yeah.
end of it, they're praising her as much as they praise Satan.
Yeah.
So
I kind of wish that Guy, she would have given Guy the comeuppance that he needed, and been something like, well, you're not even his father, so you have,
yeah, and Guy played it right. He when she came over, I don't think he did anything to he definitely didn't stand up and say you need to get out of here, which we've
yeah,
seen plenty of times in 60s movies where a man overplays that hand and tries to be the boss of the house or whatever.
right.
He didn't do that at all. I think he realizes that whatever he's getting out of it, I mean, he does tell her at one point, we can always have another kid. Or was that in a dream? I'm pretty sure he tells her that. We
No,
can
he
always
tells
have
her
another
that.
one.
Yeah.
And that he did it because he says it. I did it so that the career would be better and that
Yep.
we could have more stuff. But I don't think I don't know if that's a forgivable offense.
Yeah.
And
No.
I hope you're right. I hope if we, read the second one down the line, I hope that there's a section in there where she uses either her newfound stance within the coven or
Yep.
the fact that she, has the Antichrist, that maybe that they can do something terrible to Guy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I
he's,
would have liked to see that. I mean, not that I think he's a horrible character or a horrible person. I'm looking at this as just a book about a guy who falls in with some sinister people, but I'm
yeah,
just like, you're a schmuck. And
that's what I'd say is schmuck.
I just want you to get what you deserve. Like,
But you know what's funny though is none of it's his fault up to the point when it is his fault because
yeah,
he told her no. We've already signed a lease. She made him break the lease. She takes him to the apartment.
yeah,
She convinces him they have to have the thing. She meets the family, with the girl, and then the girl kills herself. So then she becomes the next in line for the thing. I mean, the whole book is set up where he's agreed upon or whatever. He works for them, but all of it falls at her feet from the
yeah,
initial setup, which I guess is, you could say it was the old saying, so be careful what you wish for,
hmm,
never, the gift, looking at the gift horse in the mouth and all that stuff. The devil set it all up so that he could have this path towards being able to have his, you know, child fathered or whatever, however they want to work into the thing. But I wonder how many people in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s thought that this was probably, like based on a true story kind of thing. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I could see that. I could
And
see it. Because you think back I mean, even I guess today, but back in the 60s and 70s, you know, every small town person wanted to go to New York City or LA, either one,
right.
Um,
Yeah, they didn't
so
have any clue. There was no internet to show you all the underbelly of those things and all the
yeah,
terrible things that happened to those people that didn't achieve their dreams and all the terrible things that people do to achieve their dreams. I
yep,
think if people understood what was on that path, they would probably recalibrate and be more than happy to, stay where they are and pursue it a different way.
yep,
But some people, when whatever guy is that guy, he was handed an opportunity, and the way it's written, I don't think he gave it a second thought. He immediately was like, "Yeah, I'm in."
yep.
You know? So
He was like, I'm in. I want to be
yeah,
famous.
yeah, you want to. Yeah, he had no. I mean, what do you think? They promised. Oh yeah, we promised the devil will be gentle. there's a chance that she would have died in childbirth, chance that she could have never have children again, I would assume.
Mm.
Um, there's a chance that the devil completely ruined her from the waist down. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, it's cool. I get to be on TV.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
like, oh man,
I get to be on TV. Just,
yeah.
here's my wife. You can have her.
And not only that, you can have her, and I get to stand in the audience because he's in the visions, because
Hmm.
she's smart. She's smart
Yeah.
enough to figure out there was something wrong with the moose that he was feeding her,
Yep.
that's laced, and she doesn't want to eat it. And then he's just a total ass about it, forcing her to eat it, trying to guilt her into it. And then
Yep.
she doesn't. She hides half of it. So that's why she wakes up and she thinks it's a dream, but she's actually experiencing the whole thing, which
Yeah.
which I think that's kind of weird too. That
Yeah.
she luckily there was enough dream elements though that she could trick her head into thinking that it was that the whole time. But um, I am interested to see how they make this into a movie.
Yeah. Me too.
But yeah, you're right. This isn't a traditional horror novel. This is, we're not. There's no blood. There's no guts. There's no, there's just that
That one
sense.
death where, you
And
know,
it's yeah, not even that, and more of a you could see
yeah.
that in a normal cop show or
Yep.
something like that. But what I find interesting is that even though it, like you said, it's a mystery, there's still a little sense of dread that hangs over the character, the whole enough to make you, um, kind of worry with her the whole time.
Yeah.
Um,
And the whole pregnancy um thing with the second doctor there, Dr. whatever his name
Abe,
was. Abe.
Dr. Abe,
Yeah.
his
Dr.
last name
Abe.
is very long, starts with an
Yeah.
S.
Um, he was basically brainwashing her to like ignore her own body,
Right.
which you know, people that happens still today, not necessarily pregnancies, but I had a friend who had back problems, and every time she'd go to the doctor, they'd be like, lose some weight. Everything is because you're fat, you know. Um, and that's not just her, it happens to lots of people in healthcare. So it was interesting to see how, oh, don't listen to your friends. Every pregnancy is different, you know. Don't read
Right.
those books. And that's one piece of advice that I thought was pretty accurate, because when I was pregnant, I started reading, what is the book, What to Expect When You're Inspecting.
Yeah.
And I read like the first chapter, and I'm like, this is freaking me out. So I kind of, I was on his side with the don't read those books things, but you know, he basically was trying to get her to like not discuss any pregnancy symptoms whatsoever.
Well, no, it
Um,
was genius
yeah,
because he knew because she looked like a skeleton for the first 2 3 months of pregnancy, which you're not supposed to.
yeah,
I He kept saying that you're supposed to lose a few pounds at the
yeah.
beginning, which I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems counterintuitive.
I mean,
But
some women do if they have really bad morning sickness. Um,
but she wasn't having
yeah,
any morning sickness. But yeah, he set it up so that anytime anybody said anything to her, he could just say, "What did I say?"
yeah,
And she never
yeah,
got that second opinion until it was too late. By the time she got the second opinion, she now is the hysterical Midwesterner.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that doctor doesn't even believe her and sends her back home, which I thought,
Yeah, he called the other doctor and her husband and said,
which is
"Come get
amazing.
your."
Which yeah, I assume that probably happened a lot. Come get your
Yeah,
wife. But I thought it was telling how quickly she gave up.
yeah,
As soon as the doctor and the husband came, she just was like, okay, I guess this is it.
yeah. But she didn't really, because once they got to the building, she like
That's true.
took
Yeah.
the elevator. She like the elevator attendant. She kind of like
She
pushed
spilled her
past him,
Yeah, she
and
spilled her purse out to make everybody pick
yes,
their crap up, and then she
yep,
steps in the elevator and leaves. But I'm like, it's still a terrible plan because she goes to her house, her
yeah,
apartment, locks the
which is
door,
where they were going.
and then we learn that that's how there's a doorway that connects it to the Roman mini house, apartment,
Yeah,
and so that kind of ties that all together, which allows her later to figure out where the baby is and all that stuff. But I don't know. And I get it though. She was 2 days away or 1 day away from giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why she didn't go outside to try and run away. So now that I think about it,
Yeah.
so that makes that last month or so is just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no running away or any of that stuff. So I get that. I don't know. I just thought overall, in this, if we read this in the '60s, I can understand. I could see this as a book of the month and just in a regular thing. There's almost no cursing
Mm-hmm.
other than the sex with the devil. It's and that's barely kind of touched upon. There's no
Yeah.
real sex. There's no violence. I mean, it's like a perfect book of the month, but it has a killer twist at the end. So
Yep.
the other thing I find interesting though is how, and they do this a lot in most everything, but isn't it weird that in the age of no internet, everybody always has the book you need so you can prove your point? How did
Yep.
the guy have a book on an in-depth book on witchcraft that ties in with the people that were in the building
Yep.
who were
That
actually,
particular people that lived
yeah,
in that particular building.
I
Yeah.
thought that's kind of weird, but I guess I mean, I got a ton of weird books, but it just seemed awfully convenient that he went home that day and had
Mm,
this specific hardback,
yep.
about witchcraft, and that right there, that makes you think about, well, if everybody thought Satanists were running around and witches were going on and everything, is it because everybody was buying hardback books about witchcraft? It's like,
Right.
stop buying the books, stop trying to look into it, and then you'll be all right. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I just thought I don't I enjoyed the book.
Yeah.
I read it twice. Like I said, I read it years ago. I read it again. I don't see it making its way to the top of my list of
No.
rereads.
No.
And I really, now I am interested to see how they're going to make this movie. Because, I mean, we know the twist. So it's not like, Sixth Sense or something where we were supposed to go into blind. We know what they're going to try and do. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get away with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I
but
like when they're having dinner with or lunch or whatever with Hutch before they move in.
yeah,
And he's like, "Oh, the Bramford. There's, so many suicides and they found a baby, a dead baby." Um, I would have been like, you know what? I don't want that apartment that bad.
yeah, yeah.
But they're like all about, because I'm assuming that living in the Bramford, from the way it was written, that it was some kind of status symbol. Um, you know, some kind of like, oh,
You know what? I think it kind of had to be, right, because it's a
yeah,
big apartment downtown. But at the
yeah,
same time, when she threw that dinner party and those people came over, people were talking like, "Oh, this is the Bramford. A lot of
yeah,
weird stuff happens here." So it couldn't have been, it was a status symbol, I guess, of being in the apartment on the street they must have lived on. But at the same time, it had a nefarious um, reputation.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
makes you wonder, how did they miss that? And is it because she's not from New York and had only lived there for a year or two? Well,
yeah,
how long do you think she lived there before? So she'd been married for 2 years to Guy, so obviously two. So you got to think she'd been there at least a year to have a relationship as tight as she had with Hutch.
yeah,
So I'm thinking no more 3 to 4 years she was in New York. So maybe she doesn't hear you know, um, the rumors about some of these places, but it seemed like the classic New York characters, they all knew about the house. They all
right.
knew about the apartment building and they all knew to avoid it. So,
But she's like, oh, we got to live here. It's nothing. Don't worry about it,
yeah, I know,
Hutch. We'll
right?
be fine.
Yeah. And it was funny how, well, you know what? And doesn't it also play into the disregard, or maybe that's the wrong word, but the way that people in the late '60s, especially the artistic types that we're watching the movies, we're reading their books, but their um, subtle jabs at religion,
Hmm.
specifically Christianity and Catholicism. Really, Catholicism is what they're going after. Every one of these has been Catholics that they've
Yeah,
gone after. But every one of these books is a subtle jab at how backwards those people are, how their thought processes are wrong, and how they're superstitious. But if she had just a little bit of that in her system, then we don't have the Antichrist running around New York. You know what I mean? She
yeah,
bails out of going to the thing, but everybody's so hell bent on, because she does it herself. She's like, oh, he's not, my husband's not religious. Oh, he's Protestant. I thought
He's
that was funny.
Protestant. Yeah.
Her family didn't believe that her husband's religious because he's Protestant, and he
Yeah.
really wasn't a practicing
Yeah, and that's why
Christian.
they disowned her because she married.
Right,
Not only did she marry a Protestant, but they didn't have a church wedding
right.
because
And
they
that's a
got.
big deal for
Yeah,
Catholics. I get that, but more so the church wedding than I do the disowning somebody because they married outside of the religion. I think that's always silly. Um, but it's just funny. It makes me want to just take a step back because they mentioned at the time cover in 1967, God is dead. So we're talking about a period of time where there's this big push in, obviously, over in the States of not, maybe not an anti-Christian movement, but a step away from belief in God and the impact that God has on these people's everyday lives.
yeah, and also, I think it also helps to reinforce religion because what happened, um,
Right.
Reagan wasn't baptized, so she got possessed. Rosemary was no longer practicing her religion, so now she's having Satan's baby.
Yeah,
Um,
you know what? It almost makes you feel like these people are working for the church.
yeah,
But as you,
Amityville,
yeah,
they were the transcendental meditation people. They,
right.
you know,
They're
and
kind
they
of,
moved into a possessed house or what.
but I will tell you this, an Amityville, 100%, the church, the people in charge of helping them out were a-holes for
Yeah,
not helping them out, because
yes, I
that was on
agree.
the church, 100% on the church there.
Yeah,
They're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to make the 30-minute trip because it's inconvenient and I don't
yeah,
know if I believe this. While this other guy's, had diarrhea for 7 months and is
yeah.
vomiting green stuff. So, but yeah, no, it's just weird. It makes me want to go and look at pop culture, more pop culture stuff from the time. I've obviously looked at things and we've grown up with a heavy dose of late 60s, 70s pop culture fed to us through reruns and the 80s and all that stuff. But
Yeah,
it makes me want to go back and look at it in a different eye because it's so interesting to see how many people are pushing this satanic, witchcrafty phenomenon during this time period. But then also there's this subtle anti-religion phenomenon going on, and that's all. And it's so interesting to see how it weaves together to give us some really interesting and amazing ideas.
yeah.
I think all three of these books that we've read have been entertaining.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
I agree with you though. I think Amityville has been the most entertaining, the one I've enjoyed the most, but which I find the funniest because it's not written by a novelist as much as it was written by a guy just trying to do like a true crime
Yeah.
book in a way. He's just trying to
Yeah.
tell us the events of the day of what they said happened. So it's not really written like a novel, but it reads like one.
Yeah.
And this one reads like a play, sort of.
Hmm.
Um, Exorcist, we thought read like a medical journal.
Yep.
And then we cut that out and we're okay with it. But I mean, out of the three authors, Blatty's my favorite
Yeah.
because I love Legion. I can't wait to read that. I can't wait for us to discuss that. Although I haven't read it in a long time, and I have a feeling that I'm going to read it and I'm going to be like, oh, I don't like this as much as I thought I did. And so I am a little worried about that happening as we go through this journey of different books and stuff. But
Yeah. And I
um,
find it I find it funny myself that, what did we both say about The Exorcist? There was too much medical jargon and not
yeah,
enough demon. This had like no demon,
yeah, that's
and
true.
I enjoyed this way more than The Exorcist. Not that I hated The Exorcist. I liked the book, but I think this was just a step better. Um, for it to have no demon at all, really.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, because what are we talking? 2 pages maybe of the
Yeah.
sequence of the thing
Yep.
happening, and she thinks it's a dream, so it's not even clear. And then we have at the end, you have the baby who looks like he's a demon, but not
Yeah.
really.
And
I
that's
mean,
like maybe
he's
what, 3 pages, four
yeah.
pages at the end. So
I'll be honest with you. I I have to tip my cap to the writer for what he delivered without having any of that excess stuff.
yeah.
You know, he he really did a good, and it makes me want to read some of his stuff that isn't considered horror. He's written a lot of stuff that's made into movies. Boys from Brazil, Sliver, um, Rosemary's Baby, of course, which we'll see. I want to say there's two or three other books he's done that have become movies, and so not all of his stuff is horror based. I'm interested to see, just to look at him as a writer, because
Yeah.
his technique is fantastic,
Hmm.
and he was he had these little, like when she's in the phone booth and she's running away from the doctor because she found out that he also uses the same devil root or whatever they
Yeah.
were calling it. Now I can't. I'm drawing a blank now.
Tannis root.
Tannis root. Yeah. So she's down in the phone booth, and she goes and she makes her phone call, talks to the other doctor, and then she's like, he writes something to the effect of she gets out of the phone booth, and there's a man standing there, and he turns around, but it's not the doctor, it was somebody else. And I was like, the way it was written is just throwaway, but it had that suspense of, oh,
Yep.
it's somebody there to get her, so it may not be the doctor, but is it Roman, or is it the guy at the, any of the other idiots that show up at the party? And he had this subtle way of doing that three or four different times in the book, where he kind of said, I can take you this way or that way, and I'm not going to let you know immediately. A couple words, and we're going to let your imagination run ahead of you,
Hmm.
and maybe even ruin what's going to happen. But at the same time, he usually made the right choice and kind of toward it the other way. So I enjoy, as I just reading it, I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think, and I know if you said the same thing, that the second book has not gotten quite the praise as the first one, but it isn't. It will be interesting to see how she has reacted to having the Antichrist as her kid. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the book, she's making promises of he's going to live in bright colors and he's going to get to, have a normal life, and
Yep.
he's going to be, just watch cartoons and eat cereal, and, you know,
Yep.
and she's going to make sure that all this devil stuff and the witches and all that stuff isn't the only thing that he's fed. And it'd be interesting to see how much she's able to do within the story and within this world.
Yeah.
Um, it's also going to be very interesting because when we go to the Omen, it's kind of a springboard because we're going to now focus on the child, but we're going to get to see the Antichrist a little bit older, and we'll see how it reacts or is with the other people. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good decision that we made to do this. The order we picked was kind of random, but I think
Yeah.
it's going to end up being spectacular
Yep.
as we kind of bounce around. And The Exorcist was the 70s, Amityville was late 70s, I want to say. This one's late 60s.
Hmm.
So I don't know when The Omen was written. I'm going to guess 70 something. And then The Sentinel, we're going to look at, and I want to say that's in the 70s as well. It's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see how, especially reading The Omen after this one, how different perspectives a couple years have given
Yep.
everybody. Because, there's almost no devil talk in The Exorcist. It's never the devil.
Right.
Specifically, it's a demon. They've already come to the conclusion that anything can possess them. It's not just the devil possessing things. The Amityville Horror, I don't think we were ever led to believe that it was the devil, right?
No,
Just
I don't
Satanists
even
and
think they
demons,
mentioned even any kind of demon.
other than the pig.
Yeah, but
But
that
that,
wasn't even, it really wasn't saying anything. It's a
yeah,
demon. They just said it's,
we're just supposed to make that, I think, inference from the
yeah,
glowing red eyes and the fact that it can float outside a window
yeah,
and that is giant. But yeah, you're right. But also the lady said there's evil spirits in the house.
yeah,
So that's just an interesting take. It's kind of fun to watch the different perspectives because everything's in cycles. Um, you know, I'm sure when we do werewolves or vampires or whatever, there'll be a section of books that all came out within a 5 year period. The twilight phase of horror.
oh
Everybody
gosh,
was
that,
writing romantic. There's like 70,000 different romantic vampire things that started all about the same time there. Um, Zombies. Whenever you look at zombies, it almost all seems to bunch together. Everything's cyclical. So extreme horror is going to have the same effect, I think. We had a really cool run early in the 80s, and then it kind of had a rebirth in 2000, and I feel like it's doing it again now, but in the indie world, not so
right.
much as mainstream. But so everything will run in cycles, but it's fun to see all these different people kind of jump on there. I don't think any of the people we've read so far would be called traditional horror writers. I feel like these are all like mainstream writers that happen to have written horror novels.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting in the future when we switch out of this gear and go to other things where we actually maybe focus on horror writers to kind of see the different tricks they do compared to these writers. So
Yeah.
overall, I think everybody should read the book if they haven't. Unfortunately, you know the big twist because you watched this episode and we didn't put the spoiler warning again because we're terrible at that.
I know we
Um,
are terrible with that. And
and
let's look
I'll
at
have
some
to I'll have to put
covers.
that I'll have to put that at the beginning. But yes,
Yeah.
hey, I found this very interesting. Um, because I mean, it seemed like all the covers were one of two things: the building or a baby.
Yeah.
And so this is the one we both have. I think it's
Yeah.
fine, but it doesn't make me want to run out and get it, you know?
No. But to me it's got that classic 70s look, even
Yeah,
though this is a
I do like
60s
that.
book. It's kind of just a classic look.
Yeah,
So I mean I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
right, right. Do you
Um,
think the angle of the building is to represent the suicide? The girl that jumped off and landed on the sidewalk, and she'd be looking up at the building because she was
oh,
on her
maybe.
back.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was that or if it's the angle that a baby would look. I don't know because the baby's never
Yeah.
been outside, technically.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the one. And it's funny, we both had the same cover, same year, but different things on the back.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I love
Yeah.
old books. Old books have
Yeah.
got so many cool, fun things.
Yeah.
I think this is the original hardcover.
Yeah. The dust jacket.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I didn't notice that. He's got Truman Capote writing
Oh,
the blurb
blurbs.
on the
Wow.
front. Good Lord, that's awesome.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is
it's on the
awesome.
back of mine too.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not actually, it's the same one. I was gonna say I think it's a little different.
This
But
one
yeah,
kind of looks to me like a romance book, though.
it does. Yeah, Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Like it feels like she's locked up in her tower, which
Yeah.
I guess technically she was.
Yeah,
Not really
technically.
locked up, but they did everything they could to keep her. So,
Yeah. But yeah, this definitely looks like it could be some kind of romance book, some Victorian romance where,
do you think it's trying to capture a gothic
eh,
romance vibe?
yeah, maybe trying to pull those female readers in.
I like the red
Um,
one more. I don't. You
yeah.
know what? I hate the font. I hate the name being in the middle of the book. I get that they're trying to highlight the Capote quote, but
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I
This
thought
one's kind of
this,
cool.
yeah, I thought this was really cool.
Yeah, this one's probably more of an 80s.
Yeah, I feel
They
like definitely.
probably redid the cover. This is probably one that came out in the 80s. Um, so let me see. I'm just curious. Pan. I wonder if what that publishing company, because I've never heard of Pan before.
Yeah, maybe this might be a foreign. Then maybe this is over in Britain or
Oh,
maybe
maybe.
Canada or Australia. I do like the fact because they did talk about that in the book. Instead of a mobile, he has an upside down cross hanging over him. And I
Yeah.
do like that they included it. I think it's weird that it's glowing though. And but I do love that classic. It's got that classic photorealistic painting almost,
Yeah.
that was really popular in the mid and early 80s for horror novels.
Yep.
So
You're
I would
right.
have
This is a UK. Um, the Pan Books became active in the 40s and is part of British-based Macmillan Publishers,
very
owned
cool.
by the George von Holtzbrinck Publishing Group of Germany. So,
I bet you when it's all said and done, we're gonna learn that like three families owned every publishing house
yeah,
in the world.
yeah,
And so that's why what we think is classic is why we think everything, that's awesome is because that's what they've all given us and that's it.
yeah, yeah. But this, I don't know what year this actual one was, but it gives me an 80s vibe.
Yeah, and you
It
know
gives
what?
me a Paperbacks from Hell vibe.
Yes, and I would have loved to have found this one. I would have been excited to find a cover like this. I would have
Yeah.
grabbed this book immediately.
But if it's pan, it's probably you'd probably we'll have to Karina, if you're watching, check the charity shops for this cover.
Yeah, she's got like 70, she probably has 70 copies, in the
Yeah,
back.
probably. This looks obviously like a newer. This
This
is the
looks
cover
like,
you'd buy on Amazon, I think,
yeah, I
probably.
was thinking 90s,
Yeah,
early 2000s. It has that feel of like when they re-released Dracula when the movie
yeah.
came out. And
Signet. It's a signet.
yeah,
That's actually the cover that's on Goodreads.
is it? This is what
Yeah,
I think of when I go to Walgreens or CVS and they
yeah.
have 10 books.
Hmm.
These are the kind of covers you're going to see.
Yeah, they all have the similar font with they're all similar gold titles and
Yeah.
then the white author name.
I don't like it,
Yeah,
but if you don't know what Rosemary's Baby's about, this cover doesn't sell it to me at all. I'm like, okay, it's just like burning paper. That's not even in the book,
yeah,
but the name and then of course,
the carriage.
but you already kind of get that because the name says baby. But
Yeah.
I don't like it so
I
far.
mean,
This is funny because this is the first out of four books because we're going back to Hellraisers or Hellbound Heart. Or every book we're like, okay, I kind of like this, or I think this is cool. I've been very like, I either like the cover or I think this cover is awful. And so far, I've
yeah,
found two of these awful. I think that's kind of funny.
yeah. I think this one's very cool. Of course, this
I
also
do
gives me
too.
an 80s vibe.
Yeah.
Um, so I just don't get the eyes.
Those are supposed to be the demon eyes, but they're not drawn the way they
Yeah,
explained it in the book.
yeah,
But those are supposed to be the goat eyes. But instead of being side to side, they should have made them up and down. The slits, the black. If they would have made it
yeah,
up and down, it would have looked more like what they were describing in the book.
yeah,
But no, I like the cheesy font color and just a little bit, you get the baby's eyes, so you can see that it's obviously not a normal baby. Uh,
yeah,
Very simple. We don't have a big quote from anybody famous. Just hey, here's a little tagline.
yeah.
Obviously, it's much later because it's mentioning that he's the best-selling author of Sliver,
Hmm.
and not even taking into account that Rosemary's Baby probably was as big or bigger as a bestseller. So we now know that it came out about the time either of the movie Sliver or the book Sliver.
Yeah,
So I liked this one. This is
yeah,
probably my second favorite, other than I like the paperback from hell looking one.
yeah,
This one, then ours, the red. And the other two I could do without.
yeah, yeah. I would totally buy this book if I had
Yeah.
no idea what Rosemary's Baby was or who Ira Levin was, and I
Yeah.
saw this on a shelf at a store. I would be like, "Oh, that looks cool."
Yeah, I do too. I really think this would have grabbed you. And I'd love to
Yeah,
see what the back was like or even who the publisher was. It's
yeah,
amazing. There's nothing on here. I'm surprised. Usually we get clues that who did it,
yeah,
but um yeah, I do like this one and the carriage one are my two favorites. And if I
yeah.
had seen either one of those, I'd have been very excited.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
I I think the book is good. It's a good book. People should
yeah,
read the book. It's a good experience. The problem is that it's been out forever and everybody knows what the catch is. So you're not going to be thrown, especially if you watch this episode and you haven't read it yet.
yeah.
Um,
Or if you're even into horror in general, because I had never read it before. I had really never seen the movie, but I knew what Rosemary's Baby was
right.
basically about. Um, so unless you're brand new to the horror genre, reading horror books, you you'll basically know the premise of the book. So I don't think we really spoiled it for anybody a lot.
Yeah, not too much. But you know what's amazing? It's the kind of book that you could hand to somebody who's never read horror to get their toe wet.
Yeah,
It's like it's got enough in it that it's suspenseful but it shouldn't blow them. It's not like you don't hand them the slob
yeah. Or
first.
here's
You
Mother Maggot, or
right, yeah.
Billy Silver
You got to
for your
build up
first.
to that.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. I like we've said a couple times already. I think Amityville's still the top.
Hmm.
out of these three. We're not Hellbound Heart. Although to be honest with you, I don't. Didn't we say we liked it, but we weren't blown away with it? So
Yeah. Yeah. I like the reason I think Amityville is still at the top is just because I had said during the episode, it read to me like an unsolved mysteries
yeah,
episode, you
yeah. And
know?
it was they trimmed the fat, which
Yeah.
and that was the other problem is we just finished The Exorcist and we had that and we spent half that episode bitching about all the technical jargon and all the
Hmm.
stuff that didn't make any sense. And then Amityville, man, he streamlined it. They just streamlined all the information just like the Unsolved Mysteries would,
Yep.
and gave us everything we needed and left us with enough doubt, I think, to make it an entertaining read.
Yeah.
You come away from Amityville and you're like, you can see where people would think maybe the house was possessed.
Yeah. I liked Amityville so much that I picked up a copy of 666 by Jay Anson.
Oh yeah,
I have no idea what it's about. I just know it's by the same author, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna give it a try. Um,
cool.
since we've been doing these episodes with these classic books, I've been starting to collect older books from the Books of Horror buy sell trade group, and just like when I think it's Tim Eagle who commented about the Sentinel.
Yeah,
Um, and so I went and looked it up, and then I'm like, oh, there's a sequel. This sounds really good. I'll get the sequel too, you know?
yeah. I'm a big fan of buying old paperbacks, old horror
Yeah,
paperbacks and stuff. So I'm always trying to find them, but they're hard. It's getting harder and harder because it's of the stupid paperbacks from hell. No offense, but now
yeah,
everybody's looking for specific paperbacks. You don't find them in the wild as often as you used to.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you definitely don't. But read it, folks. It's a great book. Um, if you have somebody, maybe an older teen who is, starting to read horror, like Eric had said, there's barely any sex. There's, I don't think, very little swearing if there's any at all.
yeah, I can't remember
Um,
anything.
I don't remember. It's not too horrific. There's not a lot of death or blood or anything like that.
Or if you have a daughter that's looking to marry an actor and you don't want that to happen, slip
Yep,
this
yep,
book there and say, look, this is what actors do.
yep. Yeah, I
Poison the
definitely think
well.
this would definitely be a good book for somebody to get their toes wet in
Yeah,
reading the horror genre. I
sure.
really do.
Yeah, it's definitely something people should check out.
Yep.
All right, everybody, it's time for the not Stephen King book of the week. I'm amazed I got it in one take. If I was recording this for to do it as later, I would have messed it up 78 times. So this week I have got The Originals Return by David Watkins. This is the book I recommend anytime somebody in any of the groups like Book of Horror asks for a werewolf book.
Okay.
And David I think he's a great writer. I love his style. He reads really, really well. It flows easily, and it's an interesting idea, and it kind of ties in. He's from across the pond. I'm probably going to offend him if I don't get the place right. So I'm just going to say he's from the general area of the UK, and it ties in with some of their kind of old school, like the Celtics and the Druids and the kind of mythology, but it mixes it in with werewolves and stuff. And it's got military stuff in it. There's soldiers trying to hunt them down and things of that nature. It's just a really good book.
Yeah,
And he's got his
it sounds kind of like Dog Soldiers a little bit.
It kind of, well, in a way, it's like a little bit, but not in the fact that it's a bunch of soldiers that fall into it. They're hunting a guy who they think did something, and they don't realize he's a werewolf. So, um, but the most thing is that it's really good. It has a sequel. He's got a couple other books out there too. I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but I have read this one, and I really do enjoy it. So I think everybody should go check out David's stuff, and I'll put a link down below, and then we'll go from there. But if you like werewolves and you like action, this is the kind of book you should read.
Yeah. What's the name of it again? Hold it up again.
The Originals Return.
The Originals
Unfortunately,
Return.
nothing about this cover tells you that there's
No.
werewolves or military or action.
No.
I but it does tell you how pretty the area is that the book's
Yeah.
set.
Yeah, because when
So
you first held it up before we started recording, I was like, oh,
you're like,
okay.
oh, a book about moss. That's what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it's a moss thing. But that would be an interesting take too on it. But no, it was one of the first ones I read when I first started figuring out that like books of horror and stuff existed. Ran
Yeah.
across David and his stuff, and I grabbed a copy, and I really enjoyed it. So, like I said, if you like that kind of stuff, even if you don't, if you like, like my son's godfather, he likes to read like military kind of stuff. I think
Yeah.
this would fit into that. If you like military stuff, it has enough of that, but it does have a really cool twist with the werewolves and all that things going on.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
like
Yeah.
you
I
said,
just,
if you're a fan of dog soldiers, yeah, you'd probably be a fan of this too, but it's different. It's not it's not the same idea, but it's got that mix of military and werewolves, which I
eh,
always love. I'm a big fan of werewolf stories that aren't just that traditional one guy turning into a werewolf and there's no other conflict or anything.
yeah. You
Um,
would like Red Moon by Benjamin Percy then. It's
okay,
kind of
yeah,
like a post-apocalyptic werewolf
that's
story.
really, yeah, no, that sounds really
Yeah.
cool. So, and what is it called?
Red Moon by
Red
Benjamin
Moon.
Percy.
Okay, we'll put that link down too. So, if
Yeah.
you're a big werewolf fan, that's two books that you guys could dive into.
Yeah.
Um,
And I just looked up the original's return on Goodreads, and um, first of all, I can't believe it only has 17 reviews. And it was published in 2013. Um,
it's got a ton on Amazon.
oh,
Ton
does
on,
it?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. But yeah, it sounds really good. Oh, you and C. Commissar have rated and reviewed this book, so and Steve Stredd, so Lee Franklin. Goodness.
yeah,
Well, I guess I really need to read it because there's a lot of good authors that are recommending it. So, but I do love a good werewolf story. And I don't really have a problem with military type situations because if it's an interesting story, I don't care what it's about. I'll
right.
read it. But I do like werewolves and I love dog soldiers, so I'm definitely gonna have to check
Yeah,
it
and
out.
when I say military, I'm not talking like Tom Clancy. Like it's
Yeah,
not going
yeah,
to
yeah,
bore you to death. It's not going to be The Exorcist, where it has a whole bunch of jargon that you don't need to know. He writes a clean, tight story, and that's what I really appreciated about it. It was a
yeah,
really good story, and it's got a good level of action. It pulls you through the story without making you feel like you're having to fight for it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think people should read more David. I know he just released a new book. I wish I knew what the title was off the top of my head, but I will tell you this: go find this book with the link, and then go find all his other books and check them out.
yeah.
He writes a ton of different things. Not everything's werewolves. So
Oh, that's good. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. As Eric said, we'll have the links to the book of the week down there, as well as the one I had mentioned, Red Moon by Benjamin Percy. Um, and
two
with
for
our,
one this week. Come
I
on, you
know.
guys came thinking we were only going to have the one for you. We've over delivered once again.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And the Red Moon by Benjamin Percy for me was just kind of, I was at the used bookstore and I just kind of randomly pulled it off the shelf. I'm like,
Those
oh,
are
that
some of the
cover,
best ones.
yeah. I'm like, that cover looks kind of cool. So I just threw it in my cart with the 30 other books that I had that day. And it ended up being a really good book.
That's
So,
great. Well, it has to be
yeah.
if it got through the process of screening it at the store and the home screen, right?
Yep.
Because you bring all the books home, but you don't always get to them, right?
Right.
Sometimes you have to go through that whole cover process again, figure out
Yep.
which one you want to read. So,
Exactly. So, yeah. All right, everybody. Join us next time. And when we find out what's in the box.
see you next time.